Today, I want to show you what La Jolla Detached sellers did over the holidays, who cut, who pulled, and what actually worked. But first, I'd like to zoom out and discuss the year-over-year detached sales, as that gives us context for everything else. If we look back at the La Jolla Detached sales from 2015 onward, clearly we can see the peak was in 2020, during COVID, right? Sub 3% interest rates, that whole frenzy, wave of buyers. So ever since then, in 2025, we're now at around 280 sales. So that means we're down around 30% since then. However, we are on an upward trajectory because you can see from 2023, our low point, we're moving upwards. Now, back in 2020, during COVID, yes, we had sub 3% interest rates and the wave of buyers, but I don't see us getting back to that point of 400 plus sales a year for quite some time. And that was a special case as well. And we likely won't see sub 3% interest rates again, but you never know. And please note, these yearly sale counts are approximate and pulled directly from the San Diego MLS. They're directionally accurate, but I wouldn't hang on the exact number. Now, let's zoom in on what the sellers actually did during the holidays. So, I broke this out into two different study groups. We have study group A, which is the sellers who reduced during the holidays, specifically from December 1st to January 1st. And then we have study group B, which is going to be the sellers who pulled off market from December 14th until January 1st. I chose December 14th because that is the week where the wave of sellers pulling off market really picked up, okay? And there is some overlap between the two groups, only a few homes. Starting off with study group A, the sellers who reduced for the holidays from December 1st to January 1st. We had 12 sellers reduce within that 1 month span. 12 sellers within a month, that's not very many. If you look at other months, you can see 12 sellers reducing within a single week. Okay, so we know that December is a sleepy town as far as the reductions go, that's for sure. So anyways, these homes range within around $2 million up to about $12 million before they did their price reductions. And as you can see, the $3 million range actually makes up the bulk of these price reductions. So half of the sellers at 6 were in the $3 million range. And then if you look at the percentage discount off list that they took with this one reduction, you can also see that the $3 million range made up basically the most aggressive cuts, other than the $11 million range home, which we'll discuss in a second. But the $3 million range was about 7% cut on average, which is quite interesting because the $3 million range generally makes up the bulk of the inventory, okay? So for example, on December 22nd, the $3 million range made up almost 20% of the entire active detached market. So where do these 12 homes stand today? Well, 7 of them are still active on market looking for a buyer. 2 of them are pending under contract, 1 sold, and then another 2 are completely off market. Now let's briefly discuss 2 of the 12 standouts of that entire group because they're the ones that had the highest percentage reductions within that one reduction. And guess what? They moved. First, we have case study number 1, which is going to be on Hillside in the Country Club area. So this home came on in September at nearly $4 million. They did one sharp price reduction at nearly 13%, down to roughly $3.5 million on December 20th. Went pending 2 weeks later on January 3rd, and then closed just 6 days after, basically at list price, which is approximately $3.486 million. Total time on market was about 4 months. Then we have case study number 2, which is La Jolla Farms Road in La Jolla Farms. So this one withdrew from the market about 7 months ago in June at $11.75 million. They re-entered in December at $9.45 million, so almost a 20% reduction. And then it just went pending a few days ago on January 26th after just 52 days on market this time around. Then we have another one of them pending in the $3 million range latest list. And that one bounced around quite a bit with price fluctuating up and down. And actually, they ended up going pending at latest list 100,000 above their base list price. So that means they increased it 100,000 from their base list price and they went pending. So I won't say which property that is. So our holiday reducer takeaway is that 12 reductions within a month isn't very many for La Jolla's detached market. That's the first thing. And then the next thing is that most of these homes, that one cut they did not result in a sale yet. Only on a handful of them. And the ones that moved, majority of them were the ones that made real material adjustments, not just tiny tweaks. Moving on to study group B, the sellers who pulled off market. And these are the sellers who pulled off market from December 14th up until January 1st. If they pulled off and came back on the same day, we're not counting that. So again, 21 sellers. Around that time, we did have around, let's say, 72 homes on average available around then. So that means about a fourth to a third of the sellers in that holiday season pulled off market and tapped out. Okay. And here's where those 21 sellers stand as of today, January 30th. So 10 of them never came back to market. And majority of them fall under the $7.4 million mark that never came back on market. But we do have 3 higher end homes that never came back so far. So one of them is around 10 million. The other one is around 12.5 million. And then we have another one around $30 million. All 3 of those ultra high-end homes have been trying to sell for quite some time before they pulled the plug. 9 of the 21 are currently back on market. So that means we have 8 active and 1 contingent. Then we have another one that is pending and 1 that sold already. All 9 of those current back on market properties, which means the 8 actives and 1 contingent, are listed under $5 million. Here's how those sellers repriced when they came back on market in January. 2 of them actually reduced. So that means 7 of them held firm when they came back on market. But ever since then, another one of them had to reduce, and then another one actually increased. So the majority of our back on market sellers are feeling optimistic. They really are. So the one home within the group that is currently pending is on Colima Court in Bird Rock. And that one is on the west side of La Jolla Boulevard, across from Calumet Park in a quiet cul-de-sac. Ocean plus whitewater views, gorgeous woodwork and design, but it needs TLC. Latest list 3.795, down 5% from the initial list price of nearly $4 million. It went straight to pending status on January 5th after being pulled off market on December 31st. And lastly, we have our one sold property of the group on La Pintura in the Meerlands. So this one is going to be set on nearly an acre at 0.95 acres with ocean view potential from a second story. This is likely a land play. The existing house is basically a teardown, and many homes on the same street have traded for significantly more. This is not a $1.7 million street. So the buyer has essentially paid for the lot. I don't know the exact details of the transaction though. But Pintura did a sharp reset. So they pulled off December 21st, came back on January 2nd with about a 17% shave off. So they went from about $2.4 million down to about $2 million. And then the house after that went pending just 4 days later on the 6th, and then literally closed the next day for 1.7. So it sold almost 30% below the initial list price, which is a huge discount. And I'll leave the update on that note because it's already so dense, okay? But again, as you can see, the buyers are still showing up and the sellers are still, they're holding firm, right? They're feeling optimistic. So I think 2026 is going to be a great year. So anyways, thank you for watching. I'm Tara Ravanbach, your La Jolla Native Insider. Have a great night.